So I am one of the older, more experienced folks in crypto. My first year being paid in real-world asset-backed tokens, crypto tokens, was 1999. So way back at the beginning, pre-Bitcoin, way pre-Bitcoin. There was an explosion of crypto activity in the late 1990s, and I was part of that movement, part of that system. And a lot of very fundamental lessons were learned in those days, particularly about how to manage real-world assets. And when we say real-world assets here, what I'm talking about is physical stuff, right? Not financial instruments, not equities. We're talking about houses and gold bars and all these kinds of things, the actual hardcore physical stuff. So a lot of very serious lessons were learned in those years. And I do various other bits and pieces of cryptographic applications work. I do cyber for a few governments. I'm part of think tanks. And then 2013, I get very interested in what I'm hearing about Ethereum because we have not had a smart contract platform in common use for years. Joined the Ethereum team and run the marketing and comms and project management for the launch across 2014 and 2015. So I leave the Ethereum team and I go out there to solve the real world asset problem, right? And the approach that we're taking at this point is this is not thought of as being an application for Ethereum. This is thought of as being a protocol extension, right? We are going to build out a system that is part of the Ethereum ecosystem, kind of in the same way that ERC-20s or ERC-721s are, that will allow any asset class in the world in any jurisdiction onto the blockchain. And once those things are on, they're tokens and you can move them around and they have well-defined properties. So from the legal side, these things look like contracts on physical things. And from the blockchain side, these things look like tokens. It's something that is a sort of hyper object. You look at it from one side, it's a legal thing. You look at it from the other side, it's a token, but the thing itself is both and neither. And we built that thing relatively quickly. We started doing test transactions for other people's physical stuff in 2020, maybe late 2019. And we've demonstrated the capability in a range of asset classes. We've done gold, we've done real estate. The highest value single asset sold was $102,000. It was a trumpet sold by an Australian DJ. We've listed objects worth a couple $1 million. And the system works in 169 countries, 172 jurisdictions. And as far as we can tell at this point, it'll work for any asset class that a lawyer can comfortably define. The critical thing about this entire system is that it is a bit like a bridge protocol, right? If there is an error on the real world side, like you have a piece of real estate and the house burns down, that needs to reflect on the crypto side as well. And the people that own the tokens need to be made whole when there is a problem in what amounts to the protocol. So the thing is very much built around errors occur in the real world in a way that they don't in the digital, and then you need a way of making the digital and the real world join up again. There are voluntary ways of doing that if everybody is on the same page. If it turns into a legal dispute, there are efficient fundamental mechanisms for legal enforcement, and there are protocols for making sure that there are assets to enforce against. And if I had more time, I would talk through the kind of asset and the risk strategy and how all that stuff works. But basically what you wind up with is a bootstrapping pool of physical assets of high value, which are tied to tokens. And then those tokens can be used as collateral to underwrite the risk associated with bringing on the next set of assets. So what you get is a kind of virtuous circle where the assets which are on chain are used as a way of supporting the bringing of more assets on chain, and the thing accelerates over time. And we are doing this at a kind of utility scale. We spent years and years and years building infrastructure. We spent years, 3 or 4 years, convincing the UK legal fraternity that this was a solid and legitimate thing. I'm currently part of a project run by the Lord Mayor of London, who is the sort of political head of the largest financial centre in the world, called Smarter Economic Networks. We also work very closely with Sir Geoffrey Voss and the UK Jurisdiction Task Force on the UK Digital Dispute Resolution rules. We're quoted in the rules. We were the first people to use the rules for live customer transactions. And what we're really doing is building an incredibly solid platform on the financial side of it, and indeed on the political side of it. And then on the other side,
you have 30 seconds left.
Very good. And then on the other side of it, we are starting to build out the actual accessibility of the underlying assets. We have recently partnered with swarm.com, which is a lovely exchange in Germany, which is regulated by BaFin, the German regulator, to issue and manage digital securities. So that was kind of the last big missing piece before we were really ready to open the doors on this thing. You can now take a high value asset like a piece of real estate or a piece of fine art, and you can split it into fully legally defined, properly regulated fractional ownership tokens. In some jurisdictions, those would be securities, now that they wouldn't be. And we're offering this to everybody, right? If you're at RWA protocol, you want to use our back end, you can come in and we can put your entire back end onto MATTEREUM. If you have a high value asset and you want to take it through the system and get it turned into an NFT or an ERC20, you bring it in, we do that for you. But we are very interested in B2B, and by that we mean powering, a bunch of the real world asset companies in the space. Your deal flow are legals.
Understood. Well, thank you for the exceptional background. Vinay, I recently found out in one of your articles that really interested me, and perhaps you can elaborate a little bit on it. How do you envision the future relation between AI oracles, RWA, and blockchain technology?
So I think this goes in two directions. So the first is, let's think about real estate. Say you want to buy a 3-bedroom house that is 40 minutes from where you work and 30 minutes from where your mother lives, right? And ideally you want it beside water. You can either make 500 phone calls and spend 3 months on websites, or in a little while, if the data is there, you can ask an AI and it will go through all of that data and it'll come back and say, right, this one, this one, this one. So for AIs to be able to help us do things in the real world, the AIs need trustworthy data. How do you get trustworthy data? You have, true facts embedded in a proper legal dispute resolution framework on chain. The AIs can look on chain, they can see what's going on, and at that point they can start making recommendations, if not decisions. So that's one direction. The other direction is identifying stuff. So if I could fly a drone around a house and then hand the footage to the AI and say, write me a description of this house and pick out the best pictures, my cost of getting that house well represented on chain has just gone down by a factor of maybe 20 compared to having a human photographer in the loop. And so when you start talking about trying to take, $300 trillion of real estate, right? Getting effective documentation for $300 trillion of real estate so that you can transact it electronically without having to have expensive humans checking every single thing, that's going to take 50 years, right? But the first 20 or 30 trillion will be the easiest. And the faster that can go with AI, the better it is for everybody. So what we expect is to see swarms of AI companies using the MATTEREUM platform as a way of monetizing their technology, because here are a bunch of people that have assets they want identified and documented so they can sell them on chain. And the AI companies come in and say, right, well, we've got the pictures covered, we've got the property title search covered, we've got this covered, that covered. And then there's a single economic mechanism, which is that every piece of data in the MATTEREUM system is underwritten by somebody else's money. So somebody comes in and says, this is true. And if it isn't true, it's like slashing stake in another protocol. Although when we slash stake, when the MATTEREUM system slashes stake, we can sell their real estate out from under them and use the proceeds to pay damages. I mean, I say we, what I really mean is the arbitrators. But the ability to actually slash stake in the real world, to get hold of physical assets and auction them and use those proceeds to pay off debts associated with things that happened on chain, you have to bring lawyers to understand how that works, but it works, and your lawyers will agree that it works in almost all cases.
Wonderful.
So it's a whole integration strategy.
Got it. Very insightful. We got room for 2 or 3 more questions. We got one from Wendy from Bankwise. How do you handle physical asset attestation and verification in an ongoing manner?
So if the condition of the goods changes, basically, is that the question? I'll assume that's the question. So for the largest class of assets that people have acute concerns about, these things have to be vaulted. If you've got gold bars or fine art or something like that, you have to put them into a vault and get a guarantee the assets will come out in the same condition. If they don't, you have an immediate cause for dispute. If you're handling real estate, some classes of real estate are much faster changing than others. So if I have a patch of undeveloped land, very little is likely to change year on year, and somebody can check it once a year on a satellite map or equivalent. If you're dealing with something like residential real estate with people coming in and out of it all the time, like Airbnbs, the only way that you're going to be able to handle that is to have associated risk pools. So you have a pile of cash sitting on hand that says, hey, look, these properties are, people are in and out of them all the time. If somebody damages one of the properties, this money is sitting there to make it whole. And what you're concerned as a buyer is the health of that pool of money and to make sure that there isn't a kind of overextension in that pool, because there is no way with current technology to continually monitor all of those properties. Now, that said, right, as you get more use of AI, as you get more use of Internet of Things, you start beginning to think about automated monitoring. But however good the automated monitoring is, you still need underwriting a risk because you just don't know what you don't know.
Thank you so much for clarifying on that. We have room for one more question. We got one from Armand from Aurora. Who are your current clients and the most common use cases that you see at MATTEREUM?
So we have not done very much in terms of scaling, right? We went out to demonstrate the technology worked for every major asset class, and we spent most of the past 6 years figuring out how to solve all the problems rather than chasing markets before we thought everybody was ready, right? Gupta's law of innovation. If you are wrong, you can change your mind. If you are early, you are in deep trouble. So we did not want to be early. I've been early in startups a number of times. It's no damn good. So what we really did was focus on building the ultra deep technology. And now we're beginning to see legit demand. So this year, I would expect us to do a very substantial quantity of 12.5 kilogram gold bars. So these are $800,000 bars. They're the kind of things that you would feed into DeFi protocols instead of using dollars, because the dollar is kind of a risky thing. USDC depegged. You want something that won't depeg, and you want something that is not inflating. Probably you want gold rather than dollars. So we expect to do quite a bit in the way of large gold bricks. We have quite a bit of fine art kind of queued up looking to be securitized. And real estate, we are still trying to identify the best deal, but what we're looking for is Asian single family apartments. So Asian either single family or apartments, largely for sale to family offices in Asia. We think that that is a really good spot for this stuff because it allows for rapid transactions in quite legally complicated jurisdictions. And we're shopping around for the right partners. We have one group is called Crypto Real Estate. We announced a partnership with them earlier. They have a very broad and ambitious plan that will be coming along a little later, we think. But, you know, we are not sort of here to go and do our own deals. You know, for us to chase deal flow as an infrastructure provider is kind of putting the cart before the horse. We've done demonstrations. We can show you that it works. What we want is for people that have deal flow, either real world companies or crypto companies, to come and say, right, so you're just going to back end this deal flow for us. Yeah, that's what we do. We take a lot of margin, we back end your deal flow. We want very large scale, and we want everybody's assets to be interoperable. So if you've got 12 different companies and they've all used MATTEREUM as the back end, you could in theory put all those assets into the same portfolio without having your lawyers have to check every individual asset. MATTEREUM legal, yeah, MATTEREUM legal. So that's how we get liquidity, is everybody shares the back end legal.
Thank you so much, Vinay. We're also out of time. It's a very big pleasure to have you on board today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Delighted.